Champoeg State Park.
Visitor Center. Get our little
park
pass, so.
Exhibit.
Today is the day we're going to go explore some of the early history. The first place where our government was set up on the west coast. It's called Champoeg. Champoeg State Park is where we're going to go see this bit of important information about the Pacific Northwest. Although we own property in the Willamette Valley, just a short distance from this park, it's rare that I've ever had a chance to go there. So what a great
1 mile away.
Well, we're here at Champoeg.
Wow.
We're going to go down and see if we what the kitchen garden thing is. The pioneer families had to grow a good garden because there wasn't grocery stores, just any place you'd look. So they had to grow their own vegetables and fruits and different things that they could grow well. This is a very good spot to grow gardens in the Willamette Valley, very fertile and a decent climate for it. Out in front of the old barn we find the garden, and in the garden we find flowers and a bunch of hops. I don't know what they did with the hops, but there's a bunch of hops standing tall. Looks to be hops right here.
You think so?
Oh, I think so.
There's grapes over there. See the grapes?
Oh yeah. And grapes.
Huh?
Grapes. And this looks like spinach. Looks like it needs fertilizer. It's kind of yellow looking. Lettuce. Here's their grapes. The grape arbor. I see they have little screens over their delicate little vegetables. It must be they have a rabbit problem here. And in the garden, they would have had a variety of vegetables here with the screens over them to keep the rabbits out, and the rhubarb would have made excellent pies.
Big thing.
Maybe artichokes, huh?
Is it that big?
I don't know.
Wow.
See a variety of flowers, and then here's their little garden where they have their delicate little plants. And tomatoes. They undoubtedly would have to have a milk cow, and the shives would have been good for cottage cheese. And a barrel for water with a pitcher pump in it. They've got their tomatoes going here.
Is this a rhubarb too? What is this? This one.
Rhubarb.
Well,
it's gone to seed.
Rhubarb, but this is looks.
It's gone to seed.
Is that what has happened?
Yeah.
Oh, these are beans.
Pole beans.
Pole beans. Wow, look at there.
Carrots.
Carrot.
And some little flowers. And a few potatoes here. Yeah. An old grain drill.
An old harrow.
That every trace of the old town of Champoeg had disappeared in the flood of 1861. A closer look at this barn revealed clues that led to an intriguing theory. This barn is the remains of a very old and rare building. What's this?
Yeah, read that.
Barns were men's work. Donald Manson, formerly a chief trader with the Hudson's Bay Company, was described as an aristocrat, tall, strong, and of a quick military bearing. Because of his high status and his age, he was 64 when he built this barn. He probably didn't do physical labor himself, but only supervised hired hands or his sons.
Okay, now read this.
Ancient wheat farming techniques. Wheat was the main cash crop in this area when it was settled. At that time, it was grown and processed using some very old techniques, including hand harvesting with a scythe. It was brought into the barn, stored, threshed, cleaned, and bagged for shipment.
Okay, what does it say? This.
This barn is a remnant of one of Oregon's oldest pioneer settlements. After the flood of 1861 destroyed his farm, Donald Manson was desperate to get his farm going again. He quickly built this barn, designed to process wheat, a crop that could bring in quick cash and help the Mansons rebuild their lives. Over the years, the barn was used continuously by generations of farmers. In 1992, restoration work began on Manson's greatly altered and decaying barn. A close look at the structure was led to a startling discovery that the barn may have originated in the historic town of Champoeg. Evidence hinted that it had been washed away in the 1861 flood, then salvaged by Donald Manson and re-erected here. It may be the oldest structure still standing in Oregon. We have carefully restored it to its original appearance using traditional tools and techniques. There, that's enough.
What's this?
Here, you can take a picture of Donald Manson. Right there. Oh, look at the old flowers.
Big hay loft in the barn and huge beams. This old barrel's seen better days.
After the flood of 61 destroyed his farm.
Yeah, read here.
Okay. It said, the Manson family first settled here in 1858. 3 years later, a terrible flood wiped out their entire farmstead, which was located in the fields below you. They lost everything, their barn, tools, animals, and seed. Desperate, the Mansons knew they had to rebuild their farm quickly. The next year, they moved up here to higher ground and began again. The farmstead you see here today was theirs. The barn is the original structure, and the house was located where the visitor center now stands. You are welcome to explore. Please close the gates when you leave. Huh?
This is where the house stood.
Yeah.
We're getting back and it's summer just started.
Yeah.
When we get back.
Yeah, the only thing was that he's gonna have to stay here in
Hello.
July.
Hi. What is that?
It's in the spring.
See that?
Yeah, the visitor center is closed, but we can look in the window.
Friends of Historic Champoeg.
Some nice decorated benches. Looks like an old grinder to grind grain in.
From the old barn and visitor center, we go down to the oak grove and see people playing.
Oh, they're playing horseshoe. Boy, that's a big tree.
These oak trees were the Willamette Valley white oak trees, and I think they're on the endangered list, and they're not nearly as many as there used to be. They used to be just everywhere, but not anymore. We have a grove of these oak trees on our property in the Willamette Valley, and I've guarded them very carefully for a lot of years.
I didn't realize this was such a big oak grove. The Oregon History Champoeg. This area, once named to Champoeg, the place of Yampa, was the traditional homeland of the Tualatin Kalupuya tribe. Fur trappers first arrived here by canoe in 1811, and they found lush open prairies bordering the Willamette River. In 1830, French Canadians retiring from the Hudson Bay's Company and their Indian wives began farms and raised families near here. Champoeg soon became a shipping and commercial center. In 1851, local tribes and the U.S. government negotiated 6 treaties at this location. All went unratified by Congress. A thriving town existed here until the flood of 1861 swept away all the buildings. It also the memorial site of the May 2nd, 1843 meeting of the inhabitants of the Willamette settlements who formed a provisional government, the first American government on the Pacific coast.
Is that it?
Yes. I screwed up on the Newell Pioneer Village, owned and operated by the Oregon State Society, Daughters of the American Revolution.
Oh yeah, we went to that. Remember, and there was old gases.
Yes. There.
We drive on up the road a short distance to St. Paul and see the first church that was built west of the Mississippi River.
The old 1846 Catholic Church at St. Paul.
This is probably a replica of the original church that was built here by the early settlers in 1846. It was built a log, and then somewhere along the line it was replaced. an earthquake hit the church and did some damage in the 1980s, and then it was rebuilt again somewhat using the original bricks and everything.
Oh, look at the rhododendron back there.
What's that? Oh, that's a beautiful flower. The hydrangeas are already bloomed.
Oh, that's last year's blossoms.
That's last year's blossoms. It hasn't bloomed this year yet.
No, but look at the rhododendron. Very, very nice old stained glass windows in the church.
Hello. Are you visiting?
The preacher, or I should say the priest that married our daughter, his last name was Sprower?
Mike Sprower.
Okay, and so my daughter and her husband had him stand behind him as far as wedding pictures and everything.
Sure.
And so years ago, the Nibblers used to have berries all around. And he used to go pick berries, and I did too. And we were about the same age, and like Norman and Carl and Tom were.
Marge is chattering to the Catholic priest about a person that became a priest that she used to pick strawberries with in the Willamette Valley. This is a very large church that would accommodate a lot of people, and it's this is a farming community. I'm surprised they have such a big church here, but they must have enough people to make it work.
Tim would like to see some of these stained glass windows.
Wouldn't he? Yeah.
He has St. Paul colors. Look at this. Mr. and Mrs. Simon Connor. Oh, that's beautiful. Wouldn't Tim like to see this?
Yeah. Apparently that's the rope that rings the church bell.
Really an exceptionally nice church in this little farming community of St. Paul, and it dates back a long, long time. I'll bet the early pioneers really enjoyed this church, going to church, and this area was a lot of small farms, where now it's changed to more grass seed and lots of filberts, and even in the hillier areas, lots of grapes to make wine. We are still working on our house that we rent out in the Willamette Valley, and so we're going to head for that.
Well, did you like the church?
Yeah, it was pretty.
this farming area has changed. Now they're great, huge hazelnut or filbert orchards, taking up a lot of the room, and of course grass seed and other things, where in the early days it was strictly everyone had a few cows and sheep, livestock, and grew a little grain, but those days are long since gone. The small farms have been eaten up by the bigger farms, and so there's lots and lots of grass seed being grown here, where it used to be lots of berries of different kinds were grown.
Historic St. Louis Catholic Church. Parish established in 1845. Second oldest parish in Oregon. Present church built in 1880.
Okay, and then what does this say up here?
Oh, about Madame Marie Dorian. I can't read it very good.
Marie Dorian was a very hardy pioneer woman. She was guiding a group of people over a mountain range. A very deep snow came where they couldn't go on, and they ran out of food and ended up having to eat their horses. But they survived, and they wrapped in the horse hide.
Yes.
We will go up the steps and look at the church, but first we'll take a look at the Gravestone Memorial to Marie Dorian, who they say is buried under the St. Louis Church right here. Marie Dorian earned a very important part in the history of our nation.
It says St. Louis Church will be closed for renovations October 1st, 2021 until further notice. All
I couldn't see in to see what kind of renovations they're doing to it, but they'll restore it back to its original state.
The old church meeting hall is right here, and that was where our after we got married at the Lutheran church, then we had the reception in here, and that's been 60 years and 2 months ago, I guess. And it looks like it hasn't changed a bit since then. The cemetery's down here. It's a real old Catholic cemetery. The historic old St. Louis Church stands tall yet. Marge was raised right in this area, and she only lived down that road about a half mile, right down in that area there. There's a lot of hops grown here in the Willamette Valley. It's the old St. Louis Cemetery.
Since Marge went to the St. Louis school for her whole 8 years, there are 2 of her school teachers buried in this cemetery, along with a lot of the old farmers who we once knew, and they're all in the cemetery.
Some of these have weathered till you can't hardly read them. I was trying to get a date on this. December 11th, 1865, and April 11th, 1890, something, I think.
After a brief look at the old St. Louis Cemetery, we then go by and see the old schoolhouse where Marge went for her whole 8 years of school. She only lived about a mile from here, and the old schoolhouse has been turned into a private residence. They've turned it into a home where somebody lives. She'll get a few pictures of it, and then we will go on.